Death is often perceived as the final chapter of life. However, many spiritual traditions and philosophical teachings invite us to view it not as an end, but as a transition, a journey of the soul. The ancient question, what happens after we die, has intrigued human beings for millennia. Cultures, religions, and mystics across the world have provided various answers, but one common thread remains: the soul, an essence beyond the physical body, continues its journey beyond death. In this introduction, we will explore the deeper meaning of death, how the soul may transcend physical boundaries, and why this process of transition is not something to fear but embrace as part of the eternal cycle. At the heart of many spiritual teachings lies the belief that the soul is immortal. While the physical body decays, the soul remains unchanged, transcending time and space. The journey of the soul after death is often described as a passage into realms unknown, where it undergoes transformation, learning, and ultimately, liberation. For example, in many Eastern philosophies, death is viewed as a moment of enlightenment, where the soul sheds the limitations of the body and experiences a pure state of consciousness. This transition, sometimes referred to as the afterlife or the other side, is not seen as a destination but as a stage in the soul's ongoing evolution. While this view may seem unfamiliar to those raised in more materialistic or secular traditions, it resonates deeply with those who explore the deeper aspects of existence. The soul is often described as a part of the divine, a fragment of the infinite that enters into the world of physical form to learn, grow, and experience life. At death, this soul is believed to return to its original source, perhaps undergoing a process of purification or reincarnation, depending on the beliefs of the tradition. However, the journey of the soul after death is not always straightforward. According to various spiritual teachings, the soul may encounter obstacles, such as fear, attachment, or confusion, that could prevent it from fully realizing its divine nature and moving on to higher states of consciousness. These challenges are often seen as tests, opportunities for the soul to overcome the illusions of the material world and ascend to a state of pure awareness. One of the key aspects of understanding death and the soul is recognizing the impermanence of all things. Life is in a constant state of flux, and death is simply another stage in this cycle. The soul's journey is not linear but cyclical, with each life serving as a stepping stone to a greater understanding of the self and the universe. This view invites us to approach life with a deeper sense of purpose, knowing that our actions, thoughts, and choices have far-reaching effects, not only in this lifetime but also in the many lives yet to come. In essence, the process of death and the journey of the soul challenge us to re-evaluate our perspective on life. We are encouraged to view death not as a dark and final event, but as a natural and inevitable part of existence. Understanding this process can help us live more fully, appreciating each moment and embracing the mysteries of life and death with grace and acceptance. If you found this exploration of death and the soul insightful, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Please leave a comment below and share your perspective on the afterlife and the soul's journey. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more deep discussions on topics like this. Together, we can continue to uncover the mysteries of existence and explore what lies beyond the physical realm. Death is a universal event, yet its significance and interpretation differ widely across various cultures, religions, and spiritual philosophies, while the physical process of dying is the same for all. The meaning of death, the journey of the soul afterward, and the way death is treated within spiritual frameworks vary greatly. By exploring the different views of death in spiritual traditions, we gain deeper insights into the human experience and the beliefs that shape our understanding of life and the afterlife. In Hinduism, death is regarded as a transition rather than an end. The soul, or Atman, is eternal and indestructible. When the physical body dies, the soul is freed from the limitations of the material world and enters a new body or achieves liberation, known as moksha. This liberation is the ultimate goal, where the soul merges with the divine reality, Brahman, transcending the cycle of birth and rebirth. The process of reincarnation, or samsara, is governed by the law of karma, where one's actions in life determine the nature of the next birth. Hindus believe that death is a reminder of the impermanence of the body and the importance of detachment from material desires. Rituals surrounding death, such as cremation and chanting mantras, are intended to guide the soul's journey and facilitate its liberation. In Buddhism, death is similarly seen as a natural part of the cycle of life, but with a distinctive understanding of the self. Buddhism rejects the notion of a permanent soul or Atman and instead teaches the doctrine of anatta, or no self. Death is understood as the cessation of an impermanent form, and the cycle of rebirth, or samsara, continues based on one's karma. However, the ultimate goal in Buddhism is to achieve nirvana, the cessation of suffering and the end of the cycle of rebirth. This is accomplished by following the Noble Eightfold Path and understanding the Four Noble Truths, which lead to enlightenment. Buddhists believe that the state of mind at the time of death influences the future rebirth, and thus practices like meditation and mindfulness are emphasized to prepare for this inevitable transition. The focus is on achieving enlightenment, transcending suffering, and ultimately escaping the cycle of death and rebirth. In Christianity, death is seen as the passage from earthly existence to eternal life, where the soul is judged by God. Christians believe in an immortal soul that lives on after the death of the body. Upon death, the soul faces judgment and is either granted eternal life in heaven or condemned to hell. The criteria for this judgment center on one's faith in Jesus Christ, as well as their actions throughout life. Those who follow the teachings of Christ and live virtuously are promised eternal communion with God in heaven, while those who reject Him are cast into hell. The concept of judgment and the afterlife is a central tenet of Christian theology, with emphasis on salvation and redemption through faith. Funerary rituals, such as prayers, masses, and the laying of hands, are intended to assist the deceased soul on its journey to the afterlife, ensuring that they receive God's mercy and grace. In Islam, death marks the transition of the soul from the physical world to the afterlife. Muslims believe that after death, the soul enters a state of barzakh, a waiting period until the day of judgment. On this day, all souls will be resurrected, and Allah will judge each individual based on their deeds and faith. Those who have lived righteous lives, following the teachings of the Quran and the Prophet Muhammad, are rewarded with eternal life in Jannah, paradise, while those who have sinned are sent to Jahannam, hell. This judgment is based on both one's actions and the purity of their belief in Allah. Muslims are encouraged to live according to Islamic principles, with an emphasis on piety, charity, and prayer. Rituals such as the ghusl, ritual washing of the body, and Salat al-Janazah, funeral prayer, are performed to ensure the soul is honored and prepared for its journey to the afterlife. In ancient Egypt, the concept of death was intricately tied to the journey of the soul through the afterlife. The Egyptians believed in a complex spiritual system, where the soul was made up of several parts: the Ka, life force, the Ba, personality, and the Ak, immortal self. Upon death, the Ka remained with the body, while the Ba journeyed to the afterlife. The deceased would undergo a judgment process in the Hall of Ma'at, where their heart was weighed against the feather of truth. If the heart was found to be pure, the soul would enter the afterlife, a paradise known as Aru. If the heart was heavy with sin, it would be devoured by the demon Ammit. The ancient Egyptians believed that the proper funeral rites and the preservation of the body through mummification were essential to ensuring that the soul would live on in the afterlife. Elaborate tombs and pyramids were constructed to provide a safe passage for the deceased to reach the afterlife, where they would join the gods and ancestors in eternal peace. Indigenous cultures around the world, such as those in Native American and African traditions, view death as a continuation of the journey into the spirit world, rather than an end. In these cultures, death is often seen as a return to nature and the ancestors, and the soul is believed to enter a realm where it remains connected to the living. The deceased are honored through rituals, songs, and offerings, ensuring that their spirit continues to guide and protect their descendants. The cycle of life and death is seen as interconnected, with death being a natural part of the flow of life. In many indigenous cultures, the spirit world is believed to be a place of rest, and renewal, where ancestors provide wisdom and support to the living. Ceremonial practices and rituals help maintain harmony between the living and the spirit world, ensuring that death is seen as part of a greater spiritual continuum. While the specifics of death and the soul's journey vary greatly, common themes emerge across these spiritual traditions. Death is universally understood as a transition, a passage from one state of being to another. Whether it is viewed as a passage to an afterlife, reincarnation, or a return to the earth and ancestors, death remains a profound mystery that transcends the boundaries of human understanding. These diverse beliefs serve as a guide for how we live, how we prepare for death, and how we make sense of the world around us. Understanding the spiritual interpretations of death can help us live more consciously, embracing life's impermanence while seeking to transcend the physical and connect with the eternal. The concept of rebirth, often referred to as reincarnation, is a profound belief that exists in many of the world's major spiritual and philosophical traditions. It revolves around the idea that life is a continuous cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, where the soul or consciousness undergoes repeated cycles of existence in different forms. This cyclical process is typically influenced by the actions and experiences of an individual, often referred to as karma. The idea of reincarnation carries significant meaning in understanding the nature of existence, the continuity of the soul, and the spiritual journey that each being undergoes. In Hinduism, the cycle of rebirth is known as samsara, a fundamental concept that shapes the understanding of life and death. According to Hindu beliefs, the soul, or Atman, is eternal and indestructible. When a person dies, their physical body ceases to exist, but their soul is reborn into a new body. The nature of the new life is determined by the individual's karma, or the accumulated actions, thoughts, and deeds from past lives. Good actions lead to positive outcomes, while bad actions result in suffering and hardship. The ultimate goal in Hinduism is to break free from the cycle of samsara and achieve moksha, or liberation. Moksha represents the union of the individual soul with the divine reality, Brahman, and the release from the cycle of birth and death. Reincarnation is not seen as a punishment, but rather as an opportunity for spiritual growth, where each life provides the soul with lessons that bring it closer to ultimate liberation. The Buddhist view of reincarnation is similar in some ways to Hinduism but differs in its understanding of the self. In Buddhism, the concept of a permanent soul or Atman is rejected in favor of the doctrine of anatta, or no self, instead of an eternal soul. Buddhist teachings emphasize the idea of an ever-changing process of consciousness, dependent on various factors such as past actions, desires, and attachments. The cycle of birth, death, and rebirth in Buddhism is known as samsara, and it is perpetuated by ignorance, attachment, and craving. According to Buddhist teachings, the ultimate goal is to break free from this cycle through the attainment of nirvana, a state of liberation and enlightenment where the individual transcends suffering and the cycle of rebirth. Karma, in Buddhism, plays a crucial role in shaping the future of an individual, but it is not bound to a soul. Instead, the actions and intentions of an individual in their present life create the conditions for future lives. Rebirth in Buddhism is seen as a continuation of the process of suffering, and by practicing the Noble Eightfold Path, one can attain the wisdom necessary to achieve enlightenment and escape samsara. In Jainism, the cycle of rebirth is also a central aspect of the belief system. Jain philosophy holds that all living beings possess a soul, jiva, and these souls are subject to the law of karma. The accumulated karma from previous actions binds the soul to the cycle of rebirth. Jainism teaches that liberation from this cycle is possible through spiritual purification, self-discipline, and non-violence. The soul, through repeated cycles of birth and death, gradually sheds the impurities of karma, and when it is completely purified, it attains liberation, moksha. The Jain path emphasizes the importance of self-control, meditation, and ethical living, where actions, speech, and thoughts must be aligned with the principles of nonviolence, ahimsa, and truthfulness. The ultimate goal is to achieve a state of perfect bliss and infinite knowledge. free from the cycles of reincarnation. The belief in reincarnation is also found in Taoism, where it is viewed as part of the natural order of life. Taoist thought suggests that the universe is governed by the Tao, an all-encompassing principle that maintains balance and harmony. In this context, reincarnation is seen as a process of transformation, where the soul or consciousness evolves through different states of being. The Taoist understanding of reincarnation is less focused on the concept of individual karma and more on the overall flow of the universe. Taoism teaches that by aligning oneself with the Tao, individuals can transcend the cycle of rebirth and attain immortality in a spiritual sense. This immortality is not about continuing physical existence, but about merging with the Tao, becoming one with the eternal source of life. In Western philosophical traditions, the idea of reincarnation has been explored by various thinkers, although it is not as widespread as in Eastern traditions. The ancient Greek philosopher Pythagoras is perhaps one of the earliest Western figures to have discussed reincarnation, believing in the transmigration of the soul. The notion of the soul undergoing multiple lives in different bodies was a key element of Pythagorean thought, and it was later adopted by thinkers such as Plato, who explored the idea of the soul's immortality and its journey through successive lives. However, with the rise of Christianity in the West, the idea of reincarnation largely fell out of favor, as it conflicted with the Christian doctrine of resurrection and eternal life. Despite this, the concept of reincarnation continues to resonate in modern spiritual and New Age movements, where it is often combined with other spiritual ideas to form a holistic view of the soul's journey. One of the central aspects of the cycle of rebirth is the concept of karma, which plays a crucial role in determining the nature of each new life. Karma, often described as the law of cause and effect, dictates that every action, thought, and intention has consequences. Good actions result in positive outcomes, while negative actions lead to suffering. In the context of reincarnation, karma influences the conditions of an individual's future life. A person who accumulates positive karma through virtuous actions may be born into better circumstances, while someone who accumulates negative karma may face suffering in the next life. This understanding of karma encourages individuals to live ethically and mindfully, knowing that their actions will shape their future. The cycle of rebirth is often seen as an opportunity for spiritual evolution. Each life provides the soul with the chance to grow, learn, and ultimately attain liberation from the cycle itself. While the process of reincarnation may seem like an endless loop, it is also a journey towards spiritual awakening. The goal is not merely to be reborn, but to transcend the cycle entirely. Reaching this state of transcendence is viewed as the ultimate aim of spiritual practice in many traditions. Whether through the pursuit of moksha, nirvana, or spiritual enlightenment, by recognizing the impermanence of life and the interconnectedness of all beings, the soul can break free from the constraints of the material world and merge with the divine. In the modern world, the concept of reincarnation and the cycle of rebirth continues to offer individuals a meaningful framework for understanding life, death, and the continuity of existence. For many, it provides a sense of hope, offering the possibility of redemption, growth, and eventual liberation. It encourages a focus on personal responsibility, ethical living, and spiritual development, knowing that our actions have lasting effects beyond this life. Ultimately, the cycle of rebirth reminds us that life is not just a finite experience, but part of an ongoing journey that transcends the boundaries of time and space. In Tibetan Buddhism, one of the most profound and mysterious aspects of the spiritual journey is the concept of bardo. The word bardo is often translated as intermediate state, and it refers to the transitional phases between death and rebirth, as well as the various states of consciousness that arise during these phases. The idea of bardo is deeply embedded in Tibetan Buddhist teachings and plays a central role in understanding the nature of life, death, and the afterlife. According to Tibetan Buddhism, the moment of death is not an end, but rather a transition into a different realm of existence, where the soul undergoes a profound process of transformation before it enters its next life. The teachings on bardo offer insights into the potential for spiritual liberation. as they highlight the crucial opportunities for awakening that arise during these transitional periods. Tibetan Buddhism describes 6 bardas, each representing a different stage or realm of existence that the consciousness passes through. These 6 stages are categorized into 3 primary bardas: the bardo of life, char, the bardo of death, cho, and the bardo of becoming, chi. While these 3 main bardas serve as the overarching framework, Tibetan Buddhist teachings also emphasize the importance of the bardo experiences that occur during the moments of death, as well as during the transitional periods between lives. The bardo of life is considered the phase of existence we are currently experiencing. It represents the ordinary state of consciousness, where individuals are immersed in the world of form, sensation, and perception. This phase is often seen as a time for spiritual practice and growth, with the opportunity to accumulate positive karma and work toward liberation from the cycle of samsara. However, Tibetan Buddhist teachings warn that, just as in the moment of death, we are often unaware of the deeper realities of existence. The bardo of life, like all bardas, is transient and subject to the forces of impermanence. The teachings stress the importance of mindfulness and meditation in this phase, so that one may awaken to the true nature of existence and begin the process of liberation. The second bardo, the bardo of death, is the most significant and mysterious of all the bardas. It is described as the transitional phase between the end of the current life and the beginning of a new existence. The bardo of death is not a moment of simple unconsciousness. Rather, it is a highly charged state of consciousness where the individual's perception of reality undergoes a radical shift. According to Tibetan Buddhist teachings, the moment of death is when the physical body ceases to function, but the consciousness does not disappear. Instead, it enters a state of suspension, experiencing visions and phenomena that are shaped by the individual's karma and attachments from past lives. During this phase, the consciousness undergoes a series of dissolutions, where the elements of the body, earth, water, fire, and air, gradually disintegrate. Each dissolution corresponds to a particular stage of awareness, which can be either liberating or disorienting, depending on the individual's spiritual preparation. At the moment of death, the individual's mind is believed to encounter a series of vivid and intense visions. These visions are often described as being filled with light, deities, and vivid imagery that can be either terrifying or peaceful. The teachings of the Tibetan Book of the Dead, a key text in Tibetan Buddhism, explain that these visions reflect the individual's mental state and attachments during their lifetime. If the individual has practiced mindfulness and meditation, they may recognize these visions as illusions, allowing them to attain liberation from the cycle of samsara. However, if the individual is unable to recognize the nature of these visions, they may become trapped in the bardo of death and continue their cycle of rebirth. In the bardo of death, the consciousness experiences a series of increasingly subtle stages of awareness. The first stage is characterized by the dissolution of the elements and the appearance of luminous lights. As the elements dissolve, the individual's mind becomes more subtle and attuned to the inner realms of consciousness. The second stage involves the appearance of deities and symbolic figures that represent different aspects of the self and the universe. In this stage, the consciousness is encouraged to recognize the true nature of these figures as projections of the mind, allowing the individual to transcend the cycle of suffering. The final stage of the bardo of death is the experience of the clear light, a state of pure, undifferentiated consciousness that represents the ultimate nature of reality. According to Tibetan Buddhist teachings, this is the point of greatest potential for spiritual liberation, as the individual can merge with the clear light and attain enlightenment. However, most individuals are unable to recognize the clear light, and their consciousness enters the bardo of becoming. The bardo of becoming, the third major bardo, is the transitional phase between death and rebirth. After the individual's consciousness passes through the bardo of death, it enters a state of unmanifested potential, where the seeds of future experiences are formed. In this phase, the consciousness undergoes a process of identification with various karmic imprints and tendencies that determine the nature of the next life. According to Tibetan Buddhist teachings, The consciousness is drawn to certain realms or states of being based on the individual's actions and attachments in previous lives. The bardo of becoming is often seen as a time of great vulnerability, as the individual is unaware of their spiritual potential and is drawn into the cycle of birth and death once more. The teachings on the bardos offer profound insights into the nature of the afterlife and the opportunities for spiritual growth that arise after death. Tibetan Buddhism emphasizes that liberation is possible at every stage of the bardo, but it requires deep awareness, meditation, and spiritual preparation. In particular, the teachings stress the importance of recognizing the illusory nature of the experiences in the bardos and transcending attachment and fear. By developing a strong understanding of the nature of mind, the individual can enter the bardo of death with clarity, recognizing the clear light and achieving liberation from the cycle of rebirth. In addition to the 6 bardos, Tibetan Buddhism teaches that the state of consciousness during the bardo of death can be influenced by the actions of others, particularly the prayers and guidance of living spiritual practitioners. The role of the lama or spiritual teacher is critical during this time, as their guidance can help the consciousness navigate the challenges of the bardo and achieve liberation. Rituals and prayers, such as those recited in the Bardo Thodol, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, are believed to assist the deceased in recognizing the true nature of their experiences and preparing for the next stage of existence. Ultimately, the concept of bardo in Tibetan Buddhism provides a framework for understanding the continuity of consciousness beyond death and the transformative potential of the afterlife. The teachings emphasize that death is not an end, but a new beginning in the ongoing journey of the soul. The bardos represent an opportunity for spiritual awakening, where individuals can transcend the cycle of suffering and attain liberation through mindfulness, meditation, and awareness of the true nature of consciousness. It is believed that one can navigate the bardos with wisdom and ultimately achieve enlightenment. In Tibetan Buddhism, the process of death is understood as the dissolution of the physical body and the separation of consciousness from the material form. This dissolution is a gradual process that occurs in distinct stages, and each stage is believed to correspond to the subtle dissolution of the elements that make up the body. Understanding the process of body dissolution is not only crucial for comprehending the Tibetan Buddhist view of death, but also for preparing oneself spiritually to navigate the transition between life and death, and ultimately, to achieve liberation. The Tibetan Buddhist teachings emphasize that death is not an abrupt event, but rather a gradual process that can span several hours or even days. The Bardo Thodol, often known as the Tibetan Book of the Dead, which is a key text on the nature of death and the afterlife, offers a detailed description of the stages of body dissolution and the associated changes in consciousness. According to these teachings, when a person dies, the process of physical dissolution begins with the disintegration of the body's elements, earth, water, fire, and air, each of which corresponds to a particular stage of consciousness. The first stage of body dissolution is the dissolution of the earth element. This corresponds to the individual's physical body and its sense of solidity. As death approaches, the body begins to lose its rigidity, and the individual may experience a weakening of the limbs and muscles. The person's ability to move or speak diminishes, and there is a gradual sense of physical heaviness. This dissolution of the earth element is also accompanied by a sense of being disconnected from the body and from the world of ordinary perception. According to Tibetan teachings, this stage is a profound opportunity for spiritual practitioners, as it represents the first chance to recognize the impermanence of the body and detach from the physical realm. The second stage of dissolution involves the water element. The water element in the body is associated with fluids such as blood, saliva, and other bodily fluids. As the individual enters the process of dying, the body begins to lose its moisture, and there is a noticeable decrease in bodily fluids. The mouth and throat may become dry, and the body may feel dehydrated. In Tibetan Buddhist teachings, this stage signifies the dissolution of the body's capacity for movement and vitality. During this stage, consciousness becomes even more detached from the physical senses, and the dying individual may experience a profound sense of stillness and isolation. The disintegration of the water element is also symbolic of the impermanence of the physical form, and it marks a further separation of the consciousness from its former attachment to the body. Following the dissolution of the water element is the fire element. The fire element corresponds to the warmth and vitality of the body, and it is what gives the body its capacity for movement, digestion, and energy. As death progresses, the body's temperature begins to drop, and the warmth that was once present in the body fades. In the dying process, the individual may experience a loss of internal heat, which can be accompanied by a coldness that spreads throughout the body. This is seen as the dissolution of the fire element, and it marks the transition from the active, energetic state of life to a state of stillness and death. The diminishing of warmth also signifies a further disconnection from the physical world and from the individual's previous identity as a living being. The final element to dissolve is the air element, which is associated with the breath and the circulatory system. The air element governs movement, respiration, and the circulation of life force within the body. As death progresses, the individual's breath becomes increasingly shallow and irregular, eventually ceasing altogether. This cessation of the breath marks the final stage of physical dissolution, signaling the complete separation of consciousness from the body. In Tibetan Buddhist thought, the cessation of the breath is a critical moment in the dying process. It is during this time that consciousness begins to withdraw from the sensory experiences of the physical world and enters the bardo, the intermediate state between death and rebirth. With the cessation of breath, the dying individual's consciousness enters a state of pure awareness. This state is described as the clear light, a luminous, undifferentiated consciousness that represents the most subtle and refined aspect of mind. According to Tibetan Buddhist teachings, this moment is an opportunity for liberation, as the clear light is the fundamental nature of reality, and recognizing it can lead to enlightenment. However, most individuals do not recognize the clear light and remain caught in the bardo, continuing the cycle of rebirth. For those who have practiced mindfulness and meditation during their lifetime, there is a possibility of recognizing this state and achieving liberation at the time of death. The dissolution of the body in Tibetan Buddhist teachings serves as a profound reminder of the impermanence of all things. The gradual disintegration of the elements is a reflection of the transient nature of life and the inevitability of death. While this process can be seen as a terrifying or sorrowful experience, it is also an opportunity for spiritual growth. In the Tibetan tradition, there is great emphasis on preparing for death through meditation, visualization, and cultivating awareness of the impermanence of the body. This preparation helps practitioners remain grounded in their spiritual practice, even as their physical form disintegrates. Furthermore, the dissolution process is not only a physical experience, but also an inner journey of consciousness. As the elements dissolve, the consciousness moves through different states, and it is essential for the practitioner to remain aware of these changes. Through practices like meditation on impermanence, one can cultivate the ability to recognize the moment of death as a natural and inevitable part of existence. The teachings encourage individuals to see death not as an end, but as part of a larger cycle of life and rebirth, with the potential for liberation if one can remain mindful and aware during the dissolution process. In conclusion, the process of body dissolution at death in Tibetan Buddhism is a deeply spiritual and transformative experience. The dissolution of the elements, earth, water, fire, and air, marks the physical disintegration of the body, but it also represents the gradual detachment of consciousness from the material world. For Tibetan Buddhists, understanding this process and preparing for it through spiritual practice can lead to greater wisdom and insight, offering the potential for liberation at the moment of death. By cultivating mindfulness and recognizing the impermanence of the body, individuals can prepare themselves for the ultimate transition, navigating the bardo and achieving spiritual awakening. In Tibetan Buddhism, the bardo of clear light, also known as Dharmata, represents one of the most profound and significant stages in the process of dying and death. The bardo is the intermediate state between death and rebirth, and it is in this state that the consciousness is free from the limitations of the physical body. The bardo of clear light is seen as a luminous, pure awareness, often described as the fundamental nature of reality, which is present before all concepts, distinctions, and dualities. It is the ultimate state of consciousness, the true nature of mind, and a gateway to liberation if recognized. When a person dies, the consciousness withdraws from the body in stages, as described in the dissolution process. Once the physical body ceases to function, the individual's consciousness enters the bardo of clear light, the most subtle and refined level of awareness. This stage is often described in the Bardo Thodol, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, as a moment when the individual experiences a direct encounter with the most profound aspect of their consciousness, which is pure and undefiled by the distractions of the physical world. The Bardo of clear light is considered an opportunity for liberation. It is said that during this moment of clarity, the mind has the potential to recognize its own true nature. However, this recognition is not easily attained by most beings, as the individual may not be accustomed to this level of awareness. Instead, the mind may project its habitual patterns, obscuring the experience of the clear light. For those who have prepared themselves spiritually through practices such as meditation and mindfulness, the recognition of the clear light can lead to immediate enlightenment, breaking free from the cycle of birth and death. In Tibetan Buddhism, this Bardo stage is described as a luminous, radiant experience where everything is perceived as pure light. It is not a mere vision, but rather an intense, overwhelming awareness that transcends all concepts, categories, and forms. This stage represents the essential nature of the mind, which is thought to be inherently pure, radiant, and free of attachment or suffering. The clear light is considered to be the foundation of all phenomena, and recognizing it at the moment of death is the key to liberation. For practitioners who are not able to recognize the clear light during this stage, the mind may enter subsequent bardas, where the individual experiences different visions, sounds, and encounters that reflect their past actions, habitual tendencies, and karmic imprints. These experiences can be overwhelming or even terrifying, and they present another opportunity for liberation or a continuation of the cycle of rebirth. The Bardo of clear light, therefore, is a crucial moment in the Tibetan Buddhist understanding of death. While it offers the possibility of achieving liberation and enlightenment, it also highlights the importance of spiritual preparation during one's lifetime. By engaging in practices that help cultivate mindfulness and awareness of the true nature of the mind, one can increase the likelihood of recognizing the clear light at the time of death, ultimately leading to freedom from the cycle of samsara. In the context of Tibetan Buddhism and many other spiritual traditions, the journey of the soul after death is not seen as a linear or predetermined path. Instead, it is often described as a series of opportunities for liberation, mixed with numerous potential traps or distractions that can cause the soul to wander off course. These traps are obstacles that arise from the attachments, desires, fears, and misunderstandings accumulated throughout one's life. They can prevent the soul from recognizing its true nature, leading it further into the cycle of samsara, the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. Instead of achieving liberation, one of the primary causes of these traps is the attachment to the material world. The mind, after death, is often overwhelmed by its memories and attachments to the physical realm, which manifest as vivid experiences in the bardas, the intermediate states between death and rebirth. These attachments create confusion and prevent the soul from recognizing the true nature of its existence. For instance, the soul may feel drawn to familiar places, people, or objects, which can create a strong desire to return to the physical realm. The attachment to family, wealth, status, and the physical body can create powerful forces that bind the soul to the cycle of rebirth, causing it to miss the opportunity for liberation. Another trap that can cause the soul to go astray is fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of judgment, or fear of being alone can all arise after death, and these fears can be immensely distracting. In the bardas, fear may manifest in the form of terrifying visions, dark landscapes, or fearsome deities, and these experiences can cause the soul to react in panic or confusion. The soul, unable to discern the true nature of these experiences, may take them to be real, leading it to make decisions based on fear rather than wisdom. Fear can cloud the mind's ability to recognize the clear light and the path to liberation. The third major trap is ignorance, or the lack of understanding about the nature of reality. In Tibetan Buddhist teachings, ignorance is considered one of the root causes of suffering. This ignorance manifests in the bardo as the inability to recognize the true nature of the mind, the clear light, and the ultimate reality. A person who has not developed spiritual awareness during their lifetime may enter the bardo and fail to recognize the opportunities for liberation presented by the clear light. Instead, they may be trapped by projections of their own mind or the karmic imprints from their past actions, causing them to remain stuck in the cycle of samsara. The final major trap is the influence of karma. Karma, the law of cause and effect, plays a significant role in determining the experiences of the soul after death. The actions, intentions, and behaviors accumulated during one's life create karmic imprints that shape the soul's journey after death. If a person has accumulated negative karma through harmful actions, these karmic imprints can manifest in the form of disturbing visions or experiences in the bardas. The soul may be drawn into these karmic influences, unable to break free from the cycle of cause and effect. Even if the soul is presented with the opportunity for liberation, it may be blinded by the karmic forces at play, leading it further astray. The traps that cause souls to go astray are not necessarily intentional. They arise naturally from the attachments, fears, and ignorance that permeate the human experience. However, in Tibetan Buddhist teachings, they are seen as obstacles that can be overcome through spiritual practice, mindfulness, and wisdom. By developing an understanding of the nature of reality, cultivating awareness, and purifying negative karma, the soul can avoid these traps and navigate the bardo with clarity and insight. Ultimately, the goal is to transcend the cycle of samsara and achieve liberation from suffering, returning to the pure state of enlightenment and peace. The journey of the soul, as described in Tibetan Buddhism and many other spiritual traditions, is not just a metaphysical concept but a profound guide for how we live our lives. Throughout the stages of life, death, and the bardo, we encounter a multitude of challenges, distractions, and opportunities for spiritual growth. By reflecting on these teachings, several key lessons emerge that can offer profound insights into our lives and the path to liberation. One of the most important lessons is the impermanence of all things. In Buddhist philosophy, the cycle of life, death, and rebirth is a constant reminder that everything in our existence is temporary. Our attachments to material possessions, relationships, and even our own identity are fleeting. Recognizing this impermanence can help us cultivate detachment and equanimity, both in life and death. By letting go of our attachment to the transient aspects of life, we are better able to face death with acceptance and clarity, and we free ourselves from the traps that can lead the soul astray. Another lesson that emerges is the importance of spiritual practice and mindfulness. The bardo, with its array of experiences and opportunities, teaches us that the mind is incredibly powerful and that our thoughts and actions have far-reaching consequences. In the face of fear, confusion, or desire, it is our spiritual practice that can help us navigate these states with wisdom, whether it is through meditation, prayer, or contemplation. Developing a daily practice of mindfulness helps us maintain clarity and awareness. This spiritual practice not only prepares us for the bardo, but also transforms how we live our lives, encouraging us to act with compassion, wisdom, and equanimity. The teachings on karma also offer an important lesson on the responsibility we hold for our actions. In Tibetan Buddhism, karma is the law of cause and effect, where every action, thought, and intention leaves an imprint on our consciousness, shaping our future experiences. This teaches us that we are not passive observers of our fate, but active participants in shaping our destiny. The choices we make, both in the material world and in the spiritual realm, create the conditions for our future experiences. Understanding this principle encourages us to live more consciously, acting with kindness, integrity, and awareness of the consequences of our actions. One of the most profound lessons comes from the concept of the clear light and the possibility of liberation. While the bardo presents numerous challenges and traps, it also offers the soul an opportunity to awaken to its true nature. The clear light, which is often described as the ultimate state of enlightenment and peace, is not something external to us, but an inherent quality of the mind itself. In the moments of transition, when the soul is most vulnerable, there is an opportunity for awakening to the truth of our existence. This awareness encourages us to cultivate a deeper understanding of who we truly are beyond the ego and the illusions of the material world. By recognizing the clear light, we can break free from the cycle of samsara and experience liberation from suffering. In conclusion, the teachings on death, the soul, and the bardo are not just abstract spiritual concepts but practical tools for understanding the nature of life and death. They remind us that life is precious and impermanent, and that our thoughts, actions, and intentions shape our reality. The journey of the soul, as described in Tibetan Buddhism, encourages us to confront our fears, attachments, and ignorance with awareness and wisdom. It calls us to live consciously, with the intention of awakening to our true nature, so that we can transcend the cycle of suffering and attain liberation. These teachings offer a profound perspective on the meaning of life and death, guiding us to cultivate a deep awareness of our own mind and to seek enlightenment, not only for our own benefit, but for the well-being of all beings. Whether we are navigating the challenges of life or preparing for the ultimate transition of death, the wisdom shared in these teachings provides us with the tools to transform our experience and realize our highest potential.